Hi. Ooh, I'm in the wrong spot. There we go. So, welcome to our live meetup today. I'm pretty excited. You guys might have noticed that I'm moving some stuff around in the group. I'm using this units tab that Facebook groups give me. I'm kind of just checking it out now, kind of testing it out. So if you guys want to check that out and tell me what you think, that'd be really cool. I'm hoping what that will do is just allow me to organize the topics that we talk about. So, for example, today's topics, we're talking about like other magical alphabets in our whole symbolism journey here. And I've made a unit called Magical Alphabets. So what I have in there is a couple of PDF files right now, or images. And one of those is a class that I conducted live a few times, but I've, updated the PDF. I do that with all my classes. I go through and I'm like, what did I say 3 years ago that I think is wrong? And I had to change something on every page, but that's okay. So I have those in there, and what I'm hoping is that after this video, after we're all done, I can have the video show up right in the same units category so that anyone who wants to learn specifically about magical alphabets and watch this video will be able to go in there and find it right away. I'm hoping that's how it'll work. I'm also kind of considering keeping it, each cycle, like we're doing, Sigil Witchery and expression and stuff, and I might do that, but that seems a little bit too large. The problem I have with the group sometimes is that I can't find things later. It's constantly scrolling, right? So I can't always refer back to something that we were saying or to a video that we had, like a live meetup we had done. I can't always find it. So I'm hoping this will help us be a little bit more organized. Okay, so if you guys want, you can go into that unit section. There's a couple PDFs there, and those will help you you can almost kind of follow along with what we're talking about today. I'm not going to be reading them, obviously, but what we're talking about today, after we talk about our monthly tarot cards, because I finally got the info, we're going to be talking about other magical alphabets and systems of writing and kind of how they became what they became. So there are lots of really, really cool what they call dead languages, very old languages that are no longer either spoken or written, but we have, we have that old language. We have that old alphabet. We have the symbols. Egyptian hieroglyphics are a really great example. This was a whole incredible alphabet, and they're still working on deciphering it, but we have that alphabet, but no one still writes in hieroglyphics. So we're going to talk about some of those today. One thing, so you know how I'm always sweaty? I got myself a fan so I can try to look classy when I'm sweating to death. Stupid. I hate it. What was I saying now? I got distracted by my silly fan. Oh, one thing I want to say about languages. So there are quite a few languages that still use like a pictorial alphabet. If you don't know that language, if you don't speak it, if you don't write it, I do not recommend using it in your magical craft. So for example, if you don't speak or write Mandarin, I don't suggest getting Mandarin characters and using them to represent things. Although you can, of course, if you like the style of Mandarin or any sort of, Asian pictorial languages there, you can, of course, look to them for inspiration. Look to how those languages developed, how they, they actually physically create their symbols and their words and their phrases and their sentences. And you can kind of take that as inspiration. It would be so rude to just steal a language that's still being used all the time and kind of give it new meaning. So I would stick with either languages that are ancient, like the ones we're going to talk about today, languages that you speak or that you write that have something different than the regular, Latin alphabet. Yeah, just be cool, right? Just be cool. So, oh, hi. Oh, Minnesota. So cute. I hope your weather's just as nice as mine. It's beautiful. Beautiful. I think we did end up talking about this card last month, so I'm going to start with June's card. So, what happened is, this deck of cards, this Book of Shadows Tarot Volume 1, it's very specific, right? It's specific to this deck. And it comes with a book that just gives you everything. And my book has disappeared, just disappeared. And I have a feeling I know exactly how it ended up in the recycling bin where it got thrown out, but that doesn't help me now. Couldn't find a replacement for the book unless I rebought the whole deck, and it wasn't doing it. So today I found that there's an app And I'll put the link up later if some of you guys want it, but there is a Book of Shadows Tarot Volume 1 app. So I could see all the cards, I can get nice digital photos, and I can find all of the write-ups for them. So we can get back into our regular tarot, inspiration. So this is the card, making sure you guys can see, for the month of June. I did put up the digital photo of it in the tarot photo album, and I might actually make a unit that's our yearly tarot. I'm not sure. I might. It might be fun. Maybe I'm just going overboard. Who knows? So Litha is also known as Midsummer or the Summer Solstice, which is coming up this month. So it'll be a Friday. I know it. It's Friday the 21st. I'm going to be doing an episode of Seeker's Corner, and I'm already late putting it online. I'm running myself ragged sometimes. But the summer solstice, this is the day when the seasons officially change over. It's the official start of summer. You have the sun at its highest point. All of that super fun stuff. You have the longest day of the year. And that is the kind of pagan holiday of Litha. This card in regular tarot decks is the Sun card, which is like the most positive card in the entire tarot. I'm gonna sneeze, hold on. Cool. Sorry, y'all. Oh, so the Sun card is the most positive card in the whole tarot. You know, what's more positive than the sun? So it's all about light, opening up the sunlight to yourself, focusing on the things that make your life amazing, you know, enlightenment, all of that. And making sure I have the right notes here. And it's also a celebration of the season. So you celebrate the fruits that are open and the flowers that are opening. It's a day to spend outside. Usually it's one of those days where you kind of enjoy the season in general. Most solstices are really about kind of the natural movements of the wheel of the year, right? Not so much the human-made holidays, but more of the actual significant, like, cosmic events that happen all around the planet. And Litha is one of those. And just like some of these other holidays that work with a actual celestial event, it kind of does the work for you. Litha's great. Litha's always got a really great vibe. Always got a really great vibe. I love the summer solstice. And it's just a really great celebratory day. It's a simple holiday. It's just about summer, about welcoming the warmth, enjoying the sunshine, and feeling a sense of success, accomplishment, all of those great things. The sun, of course, is also associated with our solar plexus chakra, which we will be talking about in next week's meetup. We'll be talking about that chakra and how it influences our authenticity and self-expression. The first one we talked about was the throat. We're going down to the solar plexus. And the sun card, also the sunflower, these are representative of your solar plexus chakra. So that's why we're focusing on that one this month. See, I had a plan. I had a plan. We talked about the throat last month, and look it's got all throaty tones. And this time we've got our solar plexus. So those were our tarot cards. I will be making a little video, and again, I'll be putting that on the group for you guys so that you can check them out later. Like I said, it's a very specific tarot deck that kind of goes with a very heavy pagan Wiccan type theme. But it's not just a pagan Wiccan theme, you know, it's just, they're very universal themes. So, you know, the changing of the seasons and the longest day of the year are very universal themes across the world. And it's very interesting to see how different the celebrations are everywhere, but also how, you know, similar. Everyone loves the summer. Okay, so we got our tarot cards. What are we talking about today? Magical alphabets. Is there anything you guys want to say before I kind of launch into this? Before I get started? I feel kind of silly with this thing. I don't know if it's better than just like, the reason I got this, I always stop at this store on the way to a friend's house. Always. And some very odd Christian denomination that's a little bit culty leaves like leaflets. They're like this size, right? They leave these leaflets and little holders on the counter, whatever. And I'm always walking through there and I'm sweating and I'm going to a friend's house, so I grab a couple to kind of fan myself with. And then the other day I was looking through my purse and I'm like, God, what's all this trash? And it's all these garbage, weird, culty Christian leaflets. And I'm like, oh. I hadn't even thought about, you know, what I was grabbing to fan myself with. And I was like, I'll get a fan. Not only am I wasting their paper, but that's just kind of icky. I don't need it. That's why I got a fan. So I'm a sweaty bitch. Okie dokie. So in this kind of cycle in the Witch and Bitch, we're talking about Sigil Witchery, right? And not just sigils. Sigils are a way of expressing our magical wants, desires, needs, or thoughts, any of that in a creative way. And those symbols that make up the individual parts of your sigil all have individual meaning as well, according to her Laura Tempest Zakroff's method of creating sigils. So what I thought is that we would talk about and look at some older alphabets, old alphabets, symbolic alphabets, or alphabets that are already popular within magic, and how they came to create these kind of complex symbols that mean something very specific. Like I said, there's a PDF in the units section of the group. I think it's probably on the main group timeline there, and there's one called Pagan Symbols and Other Magical Symbols, and they'll both have like pictures and stuff. But the reason we're doing this is because when I was making that symbol dictionary, I realized that I really didn't have a good answer for some of those. Like 50% of the things in that symbol dictionary, I could not figure out how to draw at all. Couldn't figure out. I'm actually kind of struggling with the sigils. I love it, but I'm a very creative person. I didn't think this would be that hard, but it's a lot of work. But each individual piece has its own meaning, and I thought looking at some of these other languages, how they developed and what kind of meaning they place on little pieces would help us come up with all of those. I'm not going to start with the super basic stuff like the pentacle and pentagram, but those are in there. I'm just reminding myself what's in here. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about Wiccan symbols, the common symbols that you see all the time. They're, you know, the triple moon symbol up there. You have these alchemical element symbols. You have the pentagram. You have the wheel of the year. Those are ones that we see all of the time. But there are a lot of other symbols that work with magic or do specific things. One thing would be old, like, demonology pentagrams, you know, the big sigils that went on the ground that were meant to kind of bring forth and contain beings from other realms and things like that. Those are still very much, you can find that all over the internet. I don't know enough about it to include it, unfortunately, but super neat. I keep losing my train of thought. I'm dying. I need another coffee. Yeah, oh my God. Okay, Rebecca, you totally put me back on my train of thought. Yes. So I struggled really hard not to just put these magical symbols I already know as my symbol dictionaries. So the Ankh is a good one because the Ankh is, a lot of people know it, but they don't always know why people use it or what it means. That is an Egyptian symbol, an ancient Egyptian symbol. So anyone who works with any sort of Egyptian deities or Kemetic paganism, which is all Egypt, they use the Ankh mostly as like a main religious symbol, but it's also an ancient symbol of eternal life and like powerful protection. Like it keeps you from dying, and if you do there is eternal life in the afterlife. So it has a lot of meanings already. It's simple, it's recognizable, and it was really hard to not just be like, oh, I can just make this an Ankh. But that's not my symbol. I'm supposed to be making my own. Yeah, I struggled too. And I don't know if that's just because I know so many of these symbols already, like symbols for those things, or if I'm just not creative quite in this way, or if I just gotta keep trying. I'm still reading the book, obviously. I'm not at the end. And although it's huge and kind of absurd, I am pretty happy with the sigil that I created for my kind of big situation. I want to come up with something just a little bit smaller to get some better practice, but I am liking this idea. And although it took me a while, figuring out these symbols that are used all over the place was not really that hard once I got into it. Someone suggested I use the Leo sign to represent August, and that was a great suggestion. Using the zodiac symbols in general in your sigils is really cool. The zodiac symbols can represent a person or a time of year or whatever. You can put, specific transits to really bring it down. I have glowing hearts, glowing stars. This looks like coins to me, so it's money. I got a little skull for death. I wasn't all that all that creative with it. But the key and the infinity and the eye are kind of specific to me and my purposes. So I tried. Yeah, that's a really good idea, Rebecca. What did she say? I challenged myself to come up with at least 2 for each one. So if I really felt that an existing symbol worked for something, I could include it, but at least I had something else as well. That's a really great idea. Really super great idea. I had another one. Oh, she's got these practice scenarios, and like I said, I was having a hard time coming up with one for any of those. Sometimes I feel like I really need to be personally involved. But I am trying that, and it is making me think of more, it makes me think of more words. I'm very much a word person, so I'll see these words and I'll be like, it'll make me think of that, what I imagine for that word even more. It's such a great book and I'm loving it. I did not think I would struggle so hard. I was like, yeah, drawing stuff. I love drawing stuff. I love to doodle, but everything I doodle is already like established things. I doodle like David Bowie lyrics and spider webs and stuff. Like, this is different. This is different. But that is why I decided that these alphabets would be a really cool idea. I don't know if I can add links to here. Oops, probably not. So there are quite a few ancient languages that are used already in lots of magical practices. Probably the most recognizable to most people would be the runes, and these are, I'm trying to find ones that are easy to see. These are Norse in origin. You can see this symbol here. Okay. And this is actually you have an entire alphabet of runes here. They're not just individual symbols. A lot of times with runes, you can just kind of pull out one, they're usually on stone or wood, and take the meaning from that one. But you can also actually create an entire thought with using the runes. I got this, this is from ADF, the Druidry organization. I got it because I was just curious and I wanted to learn more. So, there are more complex meanings, but there are also these quick little one-off meanings. So you can kind of see how they got some of these. Some of them are very similar to our alphabet, but some of these they take more of the shape of things that you see there. They include more sharp corners and spear-like images. The Norse people had lots of kind of intricate symbols that they used all of the time. Not the swastika. It bums me out that I gotta say that right away. But lots of symbols like that are in that kind of wheel type shape, usually with 8 instead of 4. Those are very common in Norse symbolism as well. So they basically use the shapes that represent what their society was about. So you have more spears and swords, you have more sharp angles versus round ones. It's easier to carve into things, right? You're carving into stone or into wood. And it has lots of square symbolism. And the Norse were very kind of sturdy, stable people. They're very much earthy people, and the square is very, it denotes that like almost all the time. Very cool. So runes, you can kind of see how they came up with it, and they look like letters, and it's an easy place to start, right? You could always do this exact thing. So you could always pick a word, pick any word, and see if you can draw just lines to create a new letter that represents this word, right? It sounds so ridiculous, but it is so hard to just put like 2 or 3 sticks together to try to come up with a whole new letter. Very difficult. But this is a way that your symbols can look and manifest. They can be very sharp, to the point, simple, and taken from things kind of all around you. And symbols that represent who you are. Because the runes, I think, are really representative of who the Vikings were. Really, a lot. It's just like it's the perfect Nordic alphabet. Like, it's exactly what I would imagine. Another one that's really, really cool is called Ogham. And it's also known as the Celtic Tree Alphabet. Likewise, this one has also various sticks. Just sticks. But again, they're all symbolized by trees, which were very, very important to the Celtics. So each of these characters is the word I've been looking for, each of these characters has a name of a tree. So up here we have birch, and we have hawthorn. Now, birch is the name of this specific symbol, but what it means is beginnings. And hawthorn is the name of this specific symbol, but what it means is consequence. These were usually carved if you wanted to use them as a divinatory tool. These were usually carved on pieces of wood, trees, of course. So sticks that were all kind of equal size and length, carved up, shined up, you know, smooth. But then these would be carved inside, and again, you could draw them at random to come up with divinatory meanings. But it was also a language that they actually used to write and to communicate. Again, I posted a link in the units section so that you guys can see not only some information from someone who knows a little bit more than me, but you can also see some really, really beautiful carved Ogham rods, I guess would be the word. I don't know if they have a specific like name. I think they're just called Ogham. So you guys can see that a little bit more specifically there. And it's written vertically, so it's written from up and down, so it really does end up looking like trees. It ends up looking like you are reading the different branches of a tree and its shape. And I always wonder if there's trees out there that, you know, spell out these Ogham characters just because of how they've naturally grown where their branches are. But there is an example of that in that link that I sent you. It's very interesting because the Celts and the Norse and the Germanic, they were not super far apart. But their alphabets were different because they were just different kinds of people. So where the Vikings are very much into stable earth and swords and spears and really sharp lines like that, they're more of a warrior type people. The Celts were super into trees. That's what druids are so into trees, and it's very cute. I like them. I like druids a lot. I think they're really they're really chill, and I like that. Yeah, so it's a little bit more into trees. It's a little bit, I think, a little bit less easy to understand because it's all these tree parts connected. And to me, the fact that it goes up like that is very very indicative of that spiritual idea of enlightenment going up that tree. And I love that. I love that it's an entire tree language. You could absolutely do that with any number of natural items or natural places. You know, let's say it's not trees. Maybe you want an entire language based on water symbols, which we're going to be talking about in the next 2 months. Shh. But maybe you want it to be more watery symbols. You know, there are so many symbols that pertain specifically to the water. So if you practice a lot with the ocean or with the beach, or if you live near the water and it influences you a lot, if you work with deities that are aligned with the element of water, there are any number of symbols you can use, you know, and these are just what my child brain can come up with. You can use various different kinds of waves, different shapes of waves to denote different ideas or ferocity, you know, strength. You can, of course, do that. You can use symbols of different undersea or any kind of animal and build almost these animalistic hieroglyphics, make something that represents that animal to you, you know, maybe even a stick figure type shape. But you can use that and use qualities from the animal to decide what your symbols all mean. And that can be done with anything, but I'm kind of sticking with this whole elemental type vibe. So that is one way to start coming up with symbols. If you are a very watery, flowy, mermaidy kind of person, don't fight that. Let your symbols all be very flowy and round and really bring up that water element for you. Likewise, if you really like trees, maybe consider making your own alphabet in this kind of Ogham style that builds on top of each other to make one nice big tree sentence. It doesn't have to look exactly the same, but it doesn't have to look completely different either. Yeah. No, you didn't. So I have been talking for a little while, but you didn't miss it. You are here. I'm trying to remember what other languages I have. Cuneiform. Okay. So cuneiform is so awesome. As far as anyone knows, it is like the earliest system of writing. Or like as far as anyone can tell, it's the very earliest, and it was invented by the ancient Sumerian people in the, you know, in the biblical region of the world. It's a very, very interesting ancient language because, oh my goodness, we don't just have the symbols as they appeared by the time they were established symbols. We kind of have all of the cave style drawings that led to that symbol. So we don't just have the end result, we have the process of creating this language, and that's what makes cuneiform so incredibly interesting. It shows off all of these kind of concepts that I was talking about, where you are taking things from your natural environment and using them to symbolize things. The symbols kind of grow over time. They're something everyone kind of recognizes because they're all around you. And like I said, cuneiform is really interesting because we have so much info about it. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I'm even going to talk about that a little bit. What's cool with these elements is that there's so many things associated with each element. Even water, I mean, it's not all just water. And with fire, you have a lot of things. You have actual fire, you have flames, you have the sun. So solar images, the suit of wands, or sometimes the suit of swords, in the tarot deck is associated with fire, so you can use shapes that are kind of like swords or like wands in nature to mean different things for you. You could even, you know, make them actual little wands with like little leaves or something coming up. You can embers and coals, phoenix, dragon, anything like that that's associated with fire, you can absolutely work into a symbol dictionary for yourself. Yeah. Yeah. I'm at risk of that myself. Like, I tried to draw a few others and they just came out as different versions of this other thing, and I'm like, oh, I need to keep going. Need to keep going with the book. I am definitely still going with the book because it's really, really neat. I like it a lot. So, cuneiform. And I posted a very, very cool picture of cuneiform in that PDF in the units. Yeah. That kind of shows the progression of some of the symbols. And I have it here. And I kind of just want to show you guys what I mean. It's just so neat. I learned about this in college, I'm sure. But I studied ancient history in college, right? So that's probably exactly where it was. So we're going to start with a symbol that is very popular everywhere. And we're going to see how it progresses through the years. So here we go. Oh, I goofed it. Of course I did. So this kind of basic symbol is the symbol for the sun in the beginning. That is their first symbol symbolizing the sun. And then from there it kind of changed just a little bit. Took on a little bit more characteristic, and it changed shape, definitely changed shape into kind of an interesting shape, actually. So this, about 1,000 years later, is what the symbol turned into. I think it looks like a turtle. Doesn't it look like a turtle? Do they have turtles in the Middle East? Oh, I bet they do. You know, I'm gonna have to Google that later. So this is 1,000 years later, the symbol had changed and taken on a different, still basic shape, but with more features, with more defining characteristics. And then it kind of goes in a slightly different direction, and cuneiform starts to take on fewer characteristics. I maybe should have like drawn this out before I started here. I might have goofed and I'm sorry. I hope not. Okay, cool. Remember, these are just little rough drawings. So, okay, so this is 3,500 BC, 2,500 BC, and this is 700 BC. By there we are Assyria, no longer really Sumerians, and it becomes this. It still has a lot of these same characteristics, but it becomes more like an actual letter. And 200 years later, that's the symbol that remained. Now, a few others actually continued to change over time, but they all started as kind of obvious drawings, you know, God or heaven was this because, you know, it's up in the sky. Mountain looks like mountains, right? And over time it just became more mountainous. And the fish looks like a literal fish. I don't know. You already saw some fish. Green sea turtles. Oh, that's great. So I think it is a turtle. I love turtles. I really do. I think they're the best. So that's really cool, right? I hope you guys think it's cool. I think cuneiform is really interesting because it kind of shows you how the symbols progressed, how they became just these symbols that look like letters to us. You know, if you think about the English letters, they don't make sense on their own unless you know English. Same with like Russian characters. I can't read Russian because it doesn't use the same alphabet as me. But everyone in that area would have already known the symbols for the sun and the god or heaven or the mountain because they are universal. And from there they just became letters and a language. There's obviously more to it. There's a whole history. You can find entire books, honestly, that are just about cuneiform and how it developed. They have a really good one on Okay, so on the Wikipedia page, they have a really good example that's really, really, really super cool. Really, really super cool. Shows the stages and what year the different stages are from. But it's also just, it's a very important language to the world. Like I said, it's one of the first ever written languages, and one of the first written stories ever was the Epic of Gilgamesh, which was originally written in cuneiform. You know, the original block of the Epic of Gilgamesh was written in cuneiform, pounded into a rock. However many thousands of years ago at this point, very, very long time. But we have so much left over of cuneiform that you could technically completely learn this alphabet, and you can even learn how to pronounce a lot of the characters. I don't know if all of it is figured out. Usage. Used all through Mesopotamia, Code of Hammurabi, Gilgamesh. Cool. So I guess cuneiform was different. So scholars held the highest literacy level of cuneiform and mostly focused on writing as a complex skill and art form. So the symbols would be a little bit different from the higher classes or the scholarly classes to the regular classes, especially considering the materials they used. So cool. Apparently you can use, there's a cuneiform like Unicode. Sick. So it's so neat. We watched a documentary in class about it, and I'm trying to find it everywhere because this has got to be one of the most interesting examples of language and alphabet and symbolism that I've ever seen. To see that progression is really, really cool to me, and I wish we kind of had that for all languages, all these alphabets. I wish we had that progression. Like, how did they actually start? Because what we have now is just what they ended up using. I love cuneiform. I'm going to be posting more about it in the units. Hopefully, if that works out. I'm excited to know that ancient Sumeria had green sea turtles and that they are the sun. I'm going to have to look that up. That is something I actually wanted to mention is animals. Native Americans obviously use animals in all of their symbolism, but totem poles is specifically what I'm thinking of. Now, those animals represented individual families or spirits or ancestors or what have you, but I'm using it as an example. Don't build a totem pole. Don't do that. What I'm saying is you can use the images of animals to represent different ideas. So if you get a book like Animal Speak, it explains what different animals mean in different situations. If it comes to you in a dream, if it follows you in real life, it kind of tells you animals are one of the most popular kind of categories of omen. Omens are symbols that show up in your regular life that foretell something. So it's always something kind of major that you have to notice, and it's always going to be in a way that makes sense to you, these omens. And omens show up in all sorts of media, of course. You know, in Harry Potter, he had the big black dog omen in his teacup, and that is actually a symbol of like impending death. In Practical Magic, you'll notice that right before Sandra Bullock's like really cute husband dies, there's a black dog following him that won't leave him alone. It's just slowly and, you know, calmly following him down the road. And then when he dies, the black dog is gone. It done taken off. So what you can do when you're building up your symbol library, especially if you want to use some natural elements, is to kind of go outside and look for omens. I'm using an expression that I just created. What you want to do is go out there and look for symbolism. Do you see similar cats everywhere? Do you see similar trees everywhere? Do you see similar, even like cars or colors or whatever? Are there any symbols or omens that kind of tend to follow you around? I would work those into your symbol library as well. Like feathers. Feathers are one that's popular for a few people. I don't have a lot of feathers, but I do have two birds left for me. So I have a blue jay and I have a hawk, but don't tell the authorities. It's a Cooper's hawk. No one's going to arrest me, but don't tell the authorities I have it. But I took those as symbols or omens for sure. I looked at Animal Speak about that, but what's really, really great about that is that every time I look at one of those feathers, I remember it. I might not remember all of the specific words of its divinatory meaning, but I feel that in here. It's a symbol that instantly means something to me. So if natural stuff like that shows up in your regular life, absolutely use it. If every time you're in impending danger, a feather falls at your feet, feather can totally be a symbol of danger. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. Trying to see if I had any other stuff. Oh, right. There was one other language I wanted to mention. Ancient language. That, again, I'm sure I learned about it. Oh, I did learn about it in college. Spirals everywhere. Oh, see, and spirals are a big one. Spirals are like the #1 omen across the entire human race, right? Everyone sees spirals because spirals make up everything in our lives. Man, I will sit there and just draw loops and spirals for 100 years and not even know it. Oftentimes, when I'm meditating or something, my consciousness feels like it's kind of spiraling down a hallway almost, or forward. But spirals are a big one, big one. And if you see them everywhere, definitely work that in, for real. I love spirals, they're so fun. It always makes me think of that show Fringe, and they talk about the Fibonacci sequence. I hate math, so I didn't know anything about it, but it was really interesting. So another really, really, really cool pictorial writing style, like Egyptian hieroglyphics, is called the Mayan script. So this was the writing system of the Mayan civilization of Mesoamerica. Think like the west coast of Mexico, the western half of Mexico, basically. Not so much in the middle, but it was probably the first complete system of writing in all of Mesoamerica. And it was used right up until the Spanish, the Spanish conquest, when they stamped all of that out. But what the Mayan script uses are these incredible, incredible symbols. They're somehow both detailed and not detailed at all, random shapes. And they were always accompanied with these incredible paintings and carvings of gods and deities and heroes and all of that kind of stuff. And the really, really neat combinations just built on top of each other. I'm going to see if I can post this. It's a link to the Wikipedia page, don't hate me. Wikipedia's got good info sometimes. Actually, when I was in college, they let me use Wikipedia. I just had to specify that it was Wikipedia and that I was using it for notes and just, cite it. Cite my source. Here we go. I don't know if that worked. Woo! Okay. I don't know if the link will pop up here, but I did post a link in the comments here to the Google page for the Mayan script. What's really neat is that a lot of things in the Mayan script, to me, look like animals and people in various different positions, styles, and doing different things. They almost look like bricks. If you've ever looked at, any of the ruins that are left in Mesoamerica, or the old temples, or the old building out in the middle parts where, it hasn't been completely taken over and ruined, they were very good at creating bricks and blocks and carvings. They were so good at carving in things like the Pyramid of the Sun. That wasn't just Aztec, that was that was a whole bunch. So the Mayans had this entire system, and to me it looks like these different building blocks that are rounded at the edge, as a lot of theirs were, and filled with different little symbols and colors and things like that. Like, they were all dark, but they darkened some parts and left other parts not carved out. they also made specific glyphs or sigils for royalty. So the royalty had their own individual Mayan scripts. So Tikal, or Mutal, emblem glyph, in Tikal's Litoteca Museum, and that is in Mexico. What they have is these specific symbols for the royalty, and not only is that carving used throughout their reign, but also it's carved on any sort of tomb or sacrificial area when it comes for them to die or be sacrificed, depending on depending on what part of society they lived in, because ancient Mesoamerican cultures were bloody, beautiful, but bloody, scary, beautiful. Yeah, their goddesses are so much scarier than any others. They're just all so bloody. They also had a numerical system that was really, really cool. And what's really neat is that for a long time, they couldn't figure out anything about this Mayan writing system. They just couldn't figure out what the heck. They couldn't connect it all. And a kid, someone's kid, yeah. Okay, so one of the researchers of the Mayan glyphs, their kid was there, and just, you know, as the kids of archaeologists do, right? They're hanging out. And if Brendan Fraser movies taught me anything. And one of the kids kind of cracked it open and started describing what these symbols were and what they looked like to him. And it turns out that the context in which his descriptions fit was absolutely perfect. And they had to start thinking about it in this way. They had to start thinking about it as symbols based on a creature, but drawn in a simplified way. I don't know if, again, I'm not sure if I can post an actual photo into the... Oh my god, I think I can attach a photo. I don't know if that seems like a lot of work. I've been going on way too long here. I'm silly. Sorry, I just want to see if I can post a photo in the comments. I'm not 100% sure. It doesn't often work. Okay, so if you guys can see in the comments, I did post a photo there. Of some Mayan glyphs. Yeah! Okay, there should be a photo if you're not on your phone. If you're on your phone, it may not show up. But you can kind of see how these, and a lot of their gods were creatures, right? They had these, a lot like ancient Egypt, actually. I think it's kind of neat. I think the Mesoamericans and their language and their style of counting and their gods and everything, I think they really remind me of ancient Egypt, because they use a lot of like animals and beasts and creatures and stuff like that to represent a lot of their deities or people or ancestors. But you can kind of see how the images there are kind of bits and pieces of these particular whole images. So you have bits with a beak and an eyeball, and you see the wings over here, and you could see his feet down here, and some of those are definitely dicks because they loved phallic imagery. Loved it. So many languages love phallic imagery. Penises aren't so great. Maybe they are. The first one here, you can definitely see the fingers of the dragon in like a prayer position, which is really neat because that's a prayer pose from other parts of the world. You can see the spots and the tail from the one in the middle there. Such a cool system of writing. Now, it would be okay if you were to kind of learn what this means and use these symbols, but it might take you a very, 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 very long time for you to figure that out, because they are very... Despite the fact that they're kind of a whole image simplified into these parts, they're still incredibly complex and filled with tons of different little symbolisms inside the whole big thing. Very cool stuff, right? So interesting, so super interesting. So that is all the stuff that I had for you guys today. Do you guys have any questions? Do you want to talk about sigils or sigil witchery? Or is there anything you want to add about some of these older languages? sorry, that juice is amazing. It's called Deliciously Purple. And at this point, I live off of it. It's so good. Okay. I feel like I was well prepared today for this video. I'm not as sweaty, not as last minute. I was ready to go. A cute little sigil story. I want to hear it. This thing is so dumb, and I'm so enjoying the, like, silliness of it. I'm gonna hit somebody with it. So I work with small kids, and right now they all really love for us to draw tattoos on them with a pen. Aw, little kids. So far we haven't been yelled at by any parents, so I've been doing it. Cool. That's adorable. Well, no one's yelling, I might as well keep going. That's adorable. So one day it occurred to me that they are all asking for the same 3 symbols over and over. Hearts, stars, and sometimes dolphins. Unexpected but adorable. I do love that. It all makes me think of Moana. Damn it. I've only seen it one time. I don't know why it's always in my head. Hearts, stars, and dolphins. These could be sigils. Oh my god, that's awesome. And yeah, that's absolutely true. Kids love certain symbols, hearts and stars for sure. The dolphin, I'm like surprised, but not like totally. Kids love dolphins. Everyone loves a porpoise. And yesterday in Canada, they officially declared it illegal for porpoise captivity. You can't keep whales and dolphins and stuff in captivity anymore. Boom! Excellent. But yeah, those are definitely symbols that would be recognizable to kids. You know, hearts are symbols of love and protection and fun stuff. The star can mean anything to anybody. It can mean magic. It can mean good luck, blessings, actual stars, that kind of thing. And dolphins are interesting because dolphins, I think it came from baby beluga, but they call them dolphins. Ah! Are you in Canada or the US? Because if you're in the US, maybe beluga is just kind of outside their range a little bit. So do you draw a dolphin or a beluga? But dolphins are very playful, but also incredibly intelligent. Everybody loves them. So that's actually pretty good. Jesus Christ. Are kids still really listening to baby beluga? That is wild. Wild. Kids songs, man. I wonder if they still listen to Sharon Lois and Bram. Canadian. That is very adorable. And I highly recommend using these cute little symbols as protection symbols. Draw all over your children, please. You can totally post pictures. I'd love to see it. That is wicked, wicked cute. Oh. I like how much kids love, like, fake tattoos. Oh. Oh my god. Grown-up belugas. Oh, man. This happens when I meet someone who was a child around the same time I was. There weren't so many kids shows, but Sharon Lois and Bram was Canadian, so I'm pretty excited about that. And belugas are obviously Canadian. They're ours. They live in our St. Lawrence Seaway, and they're adorable. Now I'm wondering what belugas mean in magic. Like, what is... What is the meaning of a beluga? I gotta know now. Okay, so I'm going to let you guys go, and I'm going to keep updating that unit section and see how that works. Hopefully I can get this video in there so it's always easy to find when you want to look up this, this whole thing again, this chat, all of the comments, and everything that we talked about. Yeah, that is cute. That is really cute on the fly practical magic. I dig it. Sigils don't have to be super complicated, right? If a star says everything you need to say, then that's everything that you need, right? That is a really cool story, Ellie. I liked it a lot. Kids are so cute. I mean, as long as they're someone else's, but they're so cute. So I will keep updating that units folder. I will put up stuff about our tarot cards, and I'm not going to do it yet, but I have figured out what we're reading next month for July/August, and it's going to be really fun, but it's kind of early in the month to tell you guys. Maybe I will anyways, we'll see. So keep an eye on the group. I've got some more stuff coming into it. Likewise, if you're not super into Facebook, you just show up for the meetups or whatever, I will be posting a little, like cross-posting things to Patreon after we've done them here in the group, just so that they're searchable on other mediums if you're not really a Facebook person. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and next week we are talking about our solar plexus and a little bit more about sigils, so I hope you guys will tune in. That one will be at nighttime for the people in the other time zone, and these videos all stay up forever in the group. I don't delete any, so you can always find them later. Bye guys. Oh, I'm glad you got to come too. I hope having them at different times like this makes it so that everybody can show up at least sometimes. Thanks, Megan.